So welcome, Harri Reynolds, Ginetta Junior Racer. Thank you very much for coming on the show and getting involved. But yeah, how are you?
Hello, yeah, I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very good. It's great that you've come on the show and for a chat. But I wanted to start by asking, how did you first become interested in motorsports?
So when I was young, my dad was doing his rallying, so I was involved in that a bit, just like going around to his events around the UK, and then I jumped into a kart when I was 10, and ever since then I've just loved it.
And would you say your dad was the main person that inspired you?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Just want to follow after him, and well, although he did rallying, I'm happy racing.
Absolutely. So obviously, like most young drivers, you start in karting. How did you first get started with it, and how did you get going really?
Yeah, so when I was 10, I started in the Landau Kart Championship just as a bit of fun to see how I enjoyed it. And then I progressed into Minimax category from the Honda Cadets and started traveling out into England and all around the UK. And yeah, competed in British Kart Championship and then eventually went out into Europe to do the odd karting event.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in your karting career, what would you say were the highlights?
Probably becoming top rookie in the 2019 British Kart Championship. That was definitely one of my favourite moments. But then I've enjoyed it all, so they're probably all highlights.
Absolutely, and obviously we always say all the drivers start in karting. How much has starting your career in karting helped you with now obviously getting into car racing?
Yeah, karting really helps learning the basics of it all. It's you don't have to start in karting, but I think for me it's really helped starting in karting.
And obviously, I suppose for a lot of people, it starts as more of a fun hobby. Would you say there was a point that you recognised where it started getting a lot more seriously, or did you always just enjoy it?
Well, I've always enjoyed it. It's like it's the best thing out there to be doing. But I wouldn't really say there was a point that it became serious. Obviously, I've been enjoying it, and then it just we just kept progressing, and I'm in cars now. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you have a favourite circuit to race karts at?
Probably Campillos out in Spain. That was a real good track with the elevation change and probably being out abroad. That probably helped making it my favorite track.
Yeah, and I was going to ask, what would you say is the best part about karting? Obviously, we mentioned earlier about how much you learn from it, and I presume a big highlight, I suppose, is how close it always is.
Yeah, you're wheel to wheel, sometimes touching, and I think just the adrenaline rush you get is the best part of it.
Absolutely. Well, you're in the Ginetta Juniors now, which is a great championship, which I've got plenty to ask about that later on. How does that actually compare to what you've previously driven in karts?
So obviously it's a step up, having to learn gears and new circuits, like much bigger circuits. Yeah, it's completely different. It's got the same similar aspects, but it's also a bit different.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you started obviously the Ginetta scholarship. Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, I competed in last year's scholarship.
Yeah. So how much of a help was that to getting you on the grid for this season?
I would say it helped a lot. I the experience of it, like we didn't really know what to think going into the scholarship, and we just went in, see how I'd get on, and I was able to get through to the final four. So, and then obviously to get through that far, it was not, yeah, I guess a bit of a surprise. So then obviously other teams can see that, and I think that was a big help on getting me onto the grid.
Yeah, for sure. It's produced some brilliant drivers over the years. For anyone that's watching at home, what actually goes on in the Ginetta scholarship? Because it's much more than just driving a car quickly round in circles.
Yeah, it's a very good it's a very good chance to see who's really the overall best. So we have a media test, a fitness test, and a driving, and all the points overall get put together, and then you get put through the different rounds.
Absolutely. Well, you obviously got spotted by some of the other teams. When did you start looking towards this season about realistically getting on the grid?
So we obviously did the scholarship just to see how it went, and then after that we just contacted a couple of the teams just to see what our chances of being on the grid were, and then Assetto Motorsport saw me as a possible driver, and they got me on the grid, and that's where it all came from.
Yeah, absolutely. And how much of a help has Assetto Motorsport, which is a big well-known team here in the UK, how much of a help have they been to you in your first season?
Oh, they've helped loads. It's been amazing this year. They put faith in me to drive their car, and they've helped me progress so much from having barely any testing compared to some of the others, and they've helped loads.
Yeah. Well, I was actually going to ask, to be honest, because testing, you don't get as much of it, these days as you did maybe 20 or so years ago. How did testing go? At the start of the year, obviously getting your first go in a Ginetta race car.
So testing to begin with was a bit not where we would have liked to be. We were behind on testing massively. So compared to my teammates, I was behind a bit, trying to play the catch-up game before the start of the season. Testing is very limited, especially during the season with a testing ban. So testing is very crucial at the start of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously going into your first weekend, how did you feel going into that? Would you say it was sort of a leap into the unknown?
Yeah, but it was a mixture of emotions really as well. Like excited, but then also had the nerves creeping in, like as I see the red lights coming on.
Yeah, and compared to we discussed the similarities and differences between obviously Ginetta Juniors and karting. Those first few laps must have been really crazy because the grid sizes in the juniors are massive. How did you get on to start with?
Yeah, so like I said, a bit of a slow start, but it was a crazy first few laps. Biggest grid they've had in juniors ever. So very, very close with others, and but I love it.
Absolutely. We obviously mentioned a little while ago how much bigger the circuits are compared to the karting ones. Have you picked up a favorite track to race on this season?
Although Silverstone, I like Silverstone loads, although it's quite a boring circuit, I believe. I like the history of it. F1 circuit that's probably my favorite.
And I was actually going to ask, because we are quite lucky in the UK here in terms of championships, not just circuits. Did you consider going and doing any other junior championships here in the UK?
Not really. At the start of the season, me only being 14, I wasn't able to compete in any other championships, as in like F4. So juniors was really the only possible one for me.
And looking back over your whole season, what would you say have been the highlights, and what will you take from this season?
My highlight was probably Donington in race 3, getting P3 on track, but my overall best of P4 after I received a penalty after. And
what have you been able to take from this season? What have you learned, and what are you going to look back on and enjoy the most?
Well, I've enjoyed all this year. I'm going to take everything. I've learned so much, and it's been amazing. Like the whole team have been amazing. Everything's going to be helping me going forward. Hopefully, going forward in my career. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, looking forward. Obviously, the winter break sort of now starting after the final weekend at Brands Hatch GP. What actually goes on for you as a driver over the winter? I presume a bit of time off, but I presume you'll still be quite busy with other projects and stuff.
Yeah, so it's going to be the quietest period now up until about Christmas time, but we've got the Winter Cup coming up in a few weeks, which I'm hopefully going to be taking part in, which will just give us a feel of who's going to be on the grid for next year, just get a feel almost. Then we won't really have too much then until testing begins next year.
And looking to next season, what would you say is the aim after getting your first year or so under your belt?
obviously the aim, being a second year driver, will be going for the championship. We won't know if that's possible really until the first couple of rounds, but with my pace, I believe it's possible, and I'm confident in my ability that I can fight for the championship. So that's going to be the goal. I guess we'll find out what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking a bit further on, what would you say is the aim in your career? Where do you want to get to?
Obviously for every young racer, it's going to be F1, but realistically, with budget and all that, I don't think that's going to be possible, unfortunately. But to be honest, I'm happy with whatever I'll be driving, whether that is F1 or GT, Le Mans, like LMP, anything. I'll be happy with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I wish you the best of luck in getting there, and of course next season. Thank you, very much for coming on the show for a chat. And it's been great to follow you in your first season of Ginetta's.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely, no worries. And hopefully see you at a racetrack soon.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
All right, then. See you later.
See you.
Perfect. Thank you very much.